HOA Karen called cops to kick my wife out of our lake cabin. 3 minutes later, they saluted her. It all started on a crisp spring morning, the kind where the lake sparkled like diamonds and the world felt peaceful. Too peaceful in hindsight. Clara and I had just gotten back to our family's lake cabin, a rustic but beautiful little place built in 1924 by her grandfather, tucked away beside Pine Brush Lake. You know the type. Wooden beams, weather-worn porch swing, and wild roses that somehow bloom brighter every year. For Clara, it wasn't just a cabin. It was memory wrapped in wood and time. Her childhood summers, her grandmother's cooking, her parents' laughter. To me, it was the place where I first fell in love with her. Again and again, every single year we came back. That morning, Clara was doing what she loved most, tending to her grandmother's rose bushes, humming softly as the morning mist lifted from the grass. She always said roses are like people. They just need a little attention and the right space to grow. Me? I was on the porch, sipping coffee, watching her with that look married people give when they know they hit the jackpot. And then, that's when she showed up. Aggie Periwinkle. Yes, that was her real name. But don't let the whimsical name fool you. This woman was straight out of a suburban nightmare. She marched up the gravel path with the authority of someone who appointed herself queen of a HOA that didn't even exist a month ago. As in, she'd literally started it herself 3 weeks prior, by getting just enough signatures to pass it in the latest development phase. Our old family lots, despite predating any of the newer builds, had somehow been roped in under this new Lakeside Harmony HOA she was proudly the president of. No vote, no discussion, just a registered packet in the mail that said we now owed $430 in annual fees and had to paint our porch beige. Our cabin was cedar red, the color of warmth, history, and character. Beige was the color of despair and instant mashed potatoes. Anyway, Aggie, in her perfectly ironed skirt and that asymmetrical bob sharp enough to slice glass, had one hand on her hip and the other holding a measuring tape. "Ma'am," she said, wagging her head at Clara, "you are in direct violation of HOA Code 7.3C, unauthorized landscaping beyond designated property lines." Clara looked up, confused but calm, like someone trying to process whether this was real or just a weird local prank show. "Excuse me?" Aggie extended her tape measure like it was a sword of justice. "You've got rose stems encroaching over the HOA setback boundary. That's a code violation, and I've given 2 warnings already." "2 what now?" I said, setting my mug down and walking over. Aggie didn't even look at me. "Sir, this is between me and the homeowner." "She is the homeowner." Aggie paused, smirked, then narrowed her eyes like she just sniffed something unpleasant. "I thought this cabin was under the Thompson Trust. That means it's technically yours." "Joint ownership," Clara said, now standing. "And we haven't agreed to join your HOA." "Well," Aggie chirped, tapping her clipboard, "you don't have to agree to be part of an HOA. You're part of the district. The moment it was filed, it's legally binding." "That's not how the law works," Clara replied calmly, brushing dirt off her gloves. That was when I noticed it. The flicker in Aggie's eyes. A twitch. Not just annoyance. It was recognition. She knew Clara, and that's when things went from annoying to downright terrifying. Aggie's voice sharpened. "This is your final warning. I'm issuing a fine of $250 for the roses and another $300 for unauthorized lawn furniture. That bench isn't regulation compliant." Clara looked at me and whispered, "She's fishing. Watch her." Aggie then did what power-drunk people do when they feel their control slipping. She doubled down. She whipped out her phone, turned the screen to us like it was a weapon and said, "You're trespassing on HOA property and refusing to comply. I?" Calling the sheriff's department, I laughed. I actually laughed. "Lady, we own this land. You can't just call the cops on someone for watering their grandmother's roses." She did. 2 officers arrived in under 6 minutes. Small town efficiency. But the moment their cruiser pulled up and Aggie practically skipped toward them, pointing at Clara like a 5-year-old tattling on a sibling, My stomach dropped. She was shouting, "There! That's her. She's been threatening me." She screamed at me and said she'd burn down the HOA office, which, for the record, was a fold-out table in her garage. Clara didn't even flinch, but I could feel my heart slam against my ribs as one of the officers, Officer Keyes, stepped forward and unclipped the handcuffs from his belt. My breath caught. "You can't be serious." The other officer, Ramirez, looked hesitant. "Ma'am, we're gonna need to see some ID." And then Clara spoke, quiet, calm, but firm. "Of course, officers," she said, reaching into her canvas gardening bag. "Just let me get my credentials." Aggie smirked like she'd already won, like she could see our lives unraveling. I could see her picturing the HOA notice going out. Cabin Lot 7 has been reclaimed due to legal action and non-compliance. But then Clara pulled out a small leather case and flipped it open. Inside was a gold badge. Assistant Attorney General, State of Oregon. The silence hit harder than any gavel. Officer Keyes blinked. Then he straightened his posture and, I kid you not, saluted. "Ma'am," he said, stepping back. "We didn't realize. Apologies. Is there anything you need from us?" Aggie froze. The color drained from her face like someone just pulled the plug on her whole soul. Clara smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was that kind of smile that says, "Now, I'm done playing nice." I swear I could hear the faint sound of angels singing as Aggie's mouth hung open and she stumbled, backward, right into the very rose bush she was just complaining about. And this was only the beginning. Because Aggie had no idea. Clara wasn't just here to prune roses. She was here to prune corruption. Now, if this were any other day, Aggie might have chalked it up to a mistake and slinked away quietly. But Aggie wasn't just any HOA Karen. She was the self-declared queen of compliance, the kind of person who files noise complaints against crickets. And Clara? She wasn't just any lake-loving gardener with a badge. She was on a mission. See, what Aggie didn't realize was that the moment she recognized Clara, she dug her own grave. Clara had seen that flicker of recognition, the way Aggie's smug smirk twisted just a bit too knowingly. That wasn't a woman enforcing property codes. That was someone with a grudge. Later that evening, Clara sat at the cabin's old oak desk with her laptop open and a look I hadn't seen in a while. The look she used to wear right before dismantling a corrupt corporation in court. She said it softly. "She knows who I am, which means this isn't about rules. This is personal." Turns out years ago, when Clara was fresh into her role at the Attorney General's office, she worked on a case that involved a woman named Agatha Periwinkle, real estate developer, several counts of wire fraud, attempted zoning manipulation, and obstruction of justice. The kicker? She got off with a suspended sentence and a fat fine, but only after Clara prosecuted her. Guess who changed her name to Aggie and moved to the sleepy town of Pine Brush? Yup. So Clara did what Clara does. She investigated, quietly, thoroughly. She started digging through public records, scanned every HOA filing Aggie had submitted. What she found? Well, it was a dumpster fire in legal form. The HOA itself had been created illegally. According to town records, she didn't have enough verified signatures. Worse, she'd forged 3 of them. The supposed board of the HOA? All made up. She was charging dues, issuing fines, threatening legal action, and pocketing every cent into a shell LLC registered in Nevada. It wasn't just corruption, it was criminal enterprise. Clara compiled it all. Fake signatures, bank statements, a spreadsheet Aggie foolishly left publicly accessible on a shared HOA Google Drive labeled Paradise Project, Lakeview Takeover. A voice memo sent to her assistant, a poor guy named Brad, saying, "Once we force the Thompsons out, we can start marketing the Lakeside Resort Plan." You read that right. Resort Plan. Aggie was trying to turn this peaceful, historic lakeside neighborhood into a full-blown luxury resort, and she needed the old properties, and especially ours, to go. So Clara called Brad. Let's just say Brad wasn't the loyal minion Aggie thought he was. He hated the woman. Turns out she made him work unpaid overtime, talk to neighbors under fake names, and once blamed him for a dead squirrel in someone's chimney. Brad was done. He sent over more files, voice memos, and a full recording of Aggie, saying, "That garden witch thinks roses will save her. Wait until I drop a nuisance suit on her next month. She'll be begging to sell." Charming, right? So Clara made a plan. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday, held, as usual, in Aggie's overly beige living room. Clara walked in like she wasn't just holding a USB drive full of justice. She was holding a mic drop. Aggie stood at the front in her typical pastel power suit, eyes gleaming like she'd already won. "Before we begin," she said, "I'd like to bring forth a motion to revoke the Thompson family's privileges and begin proceedings for property reclamation due to non-compliance with HOA regulations." She actually smiled, like she was savoring every second. Clara raised her hand. "Point of order." Aggie rolled her eyes. "This isn't a courtroom, Ms. Mitchell." Clara didn't blink. "Oh, I'm aware." And then she pulled out the projector. Yes, Clara brought a portable projector to the HOA meeting, plugged in her laptop, clicked play, and up on the beige walls of Aggie's house appeared spreadsheet after spreadsheet, financial records, fake board members, and yes, the Paradise Lakeview Resort blueprint, complete with a sketchy logo that looked like it was stolen from a Florida billboard. People gasped. Brad, who had shown up late and sat near the back with popcorn, literally, raised his hand like, "Yeah, that's my voice on the tape." Aggie turned purple. One neighbor stood up. "Wait, you were planning to turn our homes into a damn hotel?" Another chimed in. "You fined me $600 for a hummingbird feeder while stealing HOA money?" Clara let them talk. And then calmly, she said, "For the record, I'm Assistant Attorney General Clara Mitchell, and this HOA is not only invalid but under investigation." That's when the shouting started, but not at Clara, at Aggie. She tried to storm out, but Brad stepped in her way. "Oh no, boss babe, you're not ghosting this one." Guess who walked in next? Officer Keys and Ramirez. The same ones, from the Rosebush incident. Clara had already filed a formal report earlier that morning, and based on the evidence she presented, fraud, forgery, false police reporting, and attempted extortion, a warrant had been issued. Aggie was arrested on the spot, and let me tell you, karma is hilarious. As she stumbled backward in shock, she tripped over her own measuring tape, rolled her ankle, and fell face first into a pot of decorative gravel. I swear to you, a single rose petal from Clara's bush must have floated across the wind and landed on her back like poetic punctuation. As they read her Miranda rights, the entire neighborhood stood in stunned silence. And then, slow clapping started. It wasn't me, it was Mrs. Gilroy, 82 years old, 3'0" and owner of the loudest wind chimes in the county. She'd been fined for them twice. She clapped first, then everyone else joined in. It was like the end of a courtroom movie. Clara didn't gloat, she didn't need to. She just packed up her laptop, unplugged the projector, and nodded to the officers. As they escorted Aggie out, she screamed, "This isn't over. I'll be back." Officer Keys replied dryly, "Not for 5 to 7, ma'am." 6 months later, life returned to normal at the lake. Clara planted more roses. The neighbors formed a real HOA, this time legally, with actual transparency, voted-in members, and, get this, a community garden run by Mrs. Gilroy. Oh, and Aggie? Word on the grapevine is that she somehow landed herself as HOA president in a new subdivision 2 towns over. But there's a twist. Her next-door neighbor, Colonel James Thompson, retired military lawyer, former JAG, known for prosecuting HOA corruption as a personal hobby. Let's just say, Aggie's going to have a very different kind of welcome party. If you're still watching, you're a legend. Drop the name of your city below. Clara might just come clean up your HOA too. And remember, document everything, know your rights, and never underestimate a woman with roses and a law degree.